When you are buying a home, it is very important to understand your financing options and how to manipulate those to get the best payment and deal possible. Let me jump in and show you what I'm looking at here. I was recently going over something just like this with one of my buyer clients, and we're looking at a house right around $350,000. He wants to put 5% down with an FHA loan, and currently the average FHA rate is around 5.6. You may qualify for better or worse. And these are all the standard numbers, these are averages. This is with no help from the seller. This is just your standard what it would cost if you pay the list price at $350,000. And what that looks like is an estimated monthly payment of about $3,000. For most people, that's not going to work. Bring to close $29,000 with your down payment, prepaids, and your fixed costs. So let me show you what you can do to help make this a little bit more affordable using the seller's money. So when you're negotiating in real estate, there are two ways to use seller's money. The first, the most common, is a price discount, meaning they want to sell the home for $350,000. You're going to offer them $325,000 and try to close hopefully somewhere in the middle, hopefully closer to your $325,000. The other way is to use seller concessions. Now, these aren't the easiest things to understand. A lot of people get a little tripped up on this. Just think of this as you and the seller agreeing on a price, you agree on all the terms, and then at the end of the transaction, the seller is just going to hand you an envelope full of money that you then use to pay for your closing costs. So remember, the closing costs are all of these things right here on this side, bring to close. So if the seller gave you $20,000 to help with your closing costs, now all of a sudden this is $9,207, not $29,000. Hopefully that makes sense. The seller is paying you money out of their proceeds to give you more cash back in your pocket instead of having to pay all that at closing. So here's where this strategy gets really powerful. With an FHA loan, you're putting 5% down. You can get a max of 6% concessions, which on this transaction is $21,000. So you could negotiate a $21,000 discount, but I'm going to show you why that's not as good here in a second. The smarter way to apply this right now is a rate buydown. So your standard interest rate right now, or your average interest rate, is 5.6 for an FHA loan. We just saw that a 6% concession is $21,000. And so with that, you could have the seller pay for all of this and buy 6 discount points. Now, a discount point, again, stay with me here. I'll put links in the description that might explain some of this a little bit more in detail, but each discount point you buy is worth about 1/4 of a point off of your interest rate. Each of those discount points costs 1% of the loan amount. Not 1% of the purchase price, but 1% of the loan amount. So if the purchase price is $350,000 and you're putting down 5%, each discount point is 95% of the list price. That's not quite as important. I just want to explain what that is. What's important is what happens there. So what you're looking at is the interest rate goes from 5.6 with 6 discount points down to about 4.1. And so when you look at this chart over here, your payment goes from $2,943 a month to $2,641 a month. A little over $300 a month in savings, all paid for by the seller. Now, I get this question a lot when I'm presenting this is, well, wouldn't it be better just to get a discount off the purchase price? That way the house is actually cheaper. In some ways, yes. And in certain situations, that is still the smarter way to do it. Normally, when you're going to be in the house less than the break-even point, meaning down here, you can see that in order for the savings here of $300 a month to be higher than, to accumulate more than the cost to buy down, it's going to take a little over 5 years, about 5.5 years. So if you plan on moving before then, I know sometimes you don't plan on it, it just happens, but as long as you can be reasonably sure that you'll be in the house longer than your break-even point, it is much smarter to go this way because you get a lower payment, more money in your pocket every single month, and you only get the price discount off the house once, but you continue getting this discount after this. So if you're in the house 10 years, now you've made an additional $16,312 over the original $20,000 given to buy this rate down. So if you were to stay in the house 15 years, now you've made an additional $34,000. This is the power of a rate buy down versus a price discount. Price discounts, like I said, still make sense in certain situations, but for most people that are staying in their house 10, 12, 14 years on average right now, this is a much better option. The great news is this: you have flexibility with this as well. Let's assume we do negotiate the full 6% and you get $21,000 back from the seller. You don't have to use all of it to buy your rate down. Let's say you wanted it to minimize some out-of-pocket cost here, and let me just do 4 points instead of the full 6. Well, now we have $13,300 to buy your rate down. So you're at a 4.6, which is a good interest rate, and you're paying about $2,700 a month. Not quite as good, obviously, but it's still $200 a month better than you would have been if you didn't get a discount at all. And now you can use the remaining concession to go against your closing costs. So instead of that $29,000 we talked about, now you're at about $21,000 and you save more money out of your pocket. There's a lot of different scenarios here, and depending on which loan officer you're using, they have different programs and rate packages as well. Getting the seller concession is much better because it gives you a lot more options to choose from, and you can really chart your own course here to make sure you're getting the deal that you want. If you're thinking about buying in the next year or so, you deserve to have a conversation with math and numbers and breaking it down just like I'm doing here. This is something I do for all of my clients, especially in our first meeting when I'm going over affordability, what our strategy is going to be, and what you're looking for. That way we can craft a buying strategy that is specifically designed for your best interests. So if you are thinking about buying next year, there's a link in my description below. Click that and schedule an appointment to meet with me, and we'll go over all of this for your situation.